Well, some different takes on the single subject there. Well, joining me now from Canberra is Chris Burns. He's the CEO of the Defence Teaming Centre in Adelaide, which supports people working in defence industry sectors. He's urging the government to clarify their terms so Australian submarine builders can remain competitive with international competition. Chris Burns, good afternoon. When it comes to South Australia and building these subs, this has got to be good, doesn't it, this competitive evaluation process?
Good afternoon. We were buoyed when Senator Edwards advised that the Prime Minister had said he was going to open it up to a transparent tender process because that's terminology we understand. That's what industry works with, is tenders. What we don't understand is what is a competitive evaluation process. Our concern is who's deciding who's competing and what's being evaluated if it's not being done on the basis of a tender.
Have you heard the term before?
No, I haven't, and it's not a common lexicon within the industry.
Do you think the Minister knows what it is?
Well, I'm not sure. I haven't seen him explain it fully. We're very keen to understand what it is. Our perception of a process would be the formation of a submarine authority to oversee the project. That should be followed by a project definition study which identifies exactly what the specifications are. They are then given to industry, who's then able to produce tenders, and they sign those tenders and say this is what we will deliver for this price. Now, I can't understand what else they could be evaluating and what the process is.
So it could be, you know, fair dinkum that there is a competitive evaluation process underway, but for many people, at least in the industry and yourself included, it's a bit of a misleading term.
Well, it's misleading because at the moment industry hasn't been invited to be a part of that evaluation process. And the normal course of being invited to be in an evaluation process is to be asked to tender against a set of specifications.
Well, why has the Prime Minister and Minister for Defence, do you think, chosen to use it?
Well, that's what concerns industry, is why are we deviating from the normal lexicon that's used? I mean, in most defence contracts there is an open and transparent tendering process. That's the way we know how to do business, and that's what the Commonwealth procurement guidelines require.
But at the end of the day, could it be that the media and others are sort of just chewing away at the wrong thing here? And isn't the Prime Minister right when he says the bottom line is that, and I quote, more subs means more jobs for South Australia?
Yeah, we need to understand what he means by that. Is he talking about in the build program, or is he talking about the through-life support later on if they're built offshore? And then we'd have to look at where the submarines are built and how much work could be done in Australia. The issue is that if we're not part of the design philosophy from the outset, and if we don't have access to the intellectual property, our capacity to do the deeper level maintenance and overhaul later in life is very, very limited. So the best we might be doing is simple maintenance, with the subs having to go back to the port where they were made to do major maintenance.
Yeah, Labor Senator Stephen Conroy reckons the evaluation process doesn't exist in the submarine procurement document. Is he right when he says that?
No, we've seen no evidence of a process that government has directed in relation to procuring. We've seen very little about the actual submarine procurement. There's been a lot of speculation in the media, but not a lot of firm advice.
Right, Chris Burns, as we mentioned before, there could be that the subs will be built offshore and Australia will get part of that building arrangement. What countries would be the front runners if they were to be built offshore?
Okay, so there's four. There's the Japanese option, which we've heard about. Then there is the French option, the German option, and the Swedish option. And those three countries, Sweden, Germany, and France, have all said that they would be willing to make their submarines in Australia, and the most likely facility would be at the ASC facility in Adelaide. But I'd highlight that any build in Australia would be a national shipbuilding effort. You would have galleys made in Tasmania, sonar systems made in Canberra, so it's a national effort. It's not just about building them in South Australia.
So is it the best possible outcome, if you like? Rather, it's not on that the entire submarine would ever be built in Australia. Are the best options then France, Germany or Sweden?
Well, they are the countries that said they are willing to build them here in Australia. They've been out, they've seen the capability and the capacity at ASC, so they recognise that they could build them competitively here in Australia just as well as they could build them in their home country. So,
and what of Japan?
Well, we have to remember that Japan hasn't exported military hardware for decades, and certainly we don't know of any instance where they've exported their design. And that's part of the problem with the air warfare destroyer, is the company that designed the air warfare destroyer had never exported their design to another country. So when we built the first air warfare destroyer, we had to learn all the lessons that Spanish company did when they built their first air warfare destroyer. So if a country or a company has not exported its designs before, it doesn't know how to transfer that intellectual property and the knowledge and experience across to another shipyard.
Yeah, and eventually you just end up, you don't have sort of, I don't know whether I'm hitting the right term here, but sort of strategic compatibility, do you?
That's correct. You need to ensure that your systems are all aligned and that you can be interoperable with other nations. Is
it true, though, that the Japanese submarine, the Soryu, or Soryu, I think it may be called, is that the best one for price that's available in the world these days?
Yeah, look, and we shouldn't be getting stuck on the price. It's about value for money, and what you've got to realise that if you build the submarines in Australia, there are sovereignty issues around owning the intellectual property, about being in the design philosophy. There are security issues in that you're able to make your spare parts in your own country, and there are economic benefits in that the billions of dollars you'll spend on these submarines, much of it will go back into the Australian economy, whereas if you build them overseas, those tens of billions of dollars will simply go across to build a shipyard and a workforce in another country.
All right, in the meantime, you're just waiting for a bit more clarity on competitive evaluation process, Chris Burns.
Well, we've been waiting for about 6 years for some clarity, so let's hope it comes soon.
All right, Chris Burns, CEO of the Defence Teaming Centre in Adelaide. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.